This Week in Startups is brought to you by AdRoll, the most widely used retargeting platform in the world with over 25,000 advertisers. Get started with a $100 credit at adroll.com/twist. And Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code TWIST at checkout to get 10% off. Today, Jason is at San Quentin talking to prisoners participating in the Last Mile, a tech accelerator and training program to help prepare incarcerated individuals for successful reentry. Jason answers tough questions and gives candid feedback on the products these students have developed in their time here.
I used to be a technological caveman, but the Last Mile has showed me that all things are possible if we just believe in the process. Today, I'm no longer a tech Neanderthal. I'm utilizing technology to build my passion so that no family will ever have to experience what mine did.
So my job now is an angel investor. So I meet with about a dozen companies a week, hundreds a year, and I invest in about 20, 30 of them. I have my own little incubator in the city in San Francisco. And that's my job, is to sort of just evaluate ideas and ask questions. And then I'm in this very unique, weird position that I have to write the check and make that decision. 25K check, 50K check, but that can be sometimes the check that actually finishes the product or gets the first customer. And then I got a lot of friends who follow what I invest in, right? So they look at me sort of like the point guard in this equation. I bring the ball up the court and I say, hey, this company, this entrepreneur has something going on. Maybe we should pay attention to it. Sometimes they invest, sometimes they don't. So that's what I do for a living. It's pretty much the greatest job on the planet, to hang out with the smartest people, have them pitch you and say, this is how the world should be. This is how things could be better. And then you get to sit in this incredible position of authority, which you did not earn, but that you lucked your way into, and then say, okay, let's try to change the world. And so when Chris showed me this program, I said, God, Chris, we have this tremendous opportunity to do this in the city with people who went to MIT or Harvard, and you're doing it with a bunch of the most hardened convicts and hard luck cases within that thing. You basically pick the toughest group of people to do it with. And I just thought that was super inspiring. And I just think maybe a big round of applause for Chris. And if you think about it, talking about that blank sheet of paper or that blank screen when you're writing that first line of code, I think Chris did that, right? At some point there was a blank sheet here and you just said, fuck it, let's do it. Am I allowed to curse in the building? I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to, I know you guys might be sensitive to such language. So anyway, I always give entrepreneurs two options. Not sure how long you've all been in here, but I suppose some of you have seen The Matrix. Anybody see the movie The Matrix? I see some nodding heads. Good. So in The Matrix, you can take the blue pill or the red pill. If you take the blue pill, you get to stay in the fake simulation that is this glorious life. If you take the red pill, you get the candid, unvarnished truth. I suppose everybody here would pick a certain color pill. Anybody want me to sugarcoat it? Who wants the unvarnished, just candid truth? Okay. All right. So we're going to go full candid, 100% candid, which means I'm just going to tell you what I think, how I think investors would view your product, what I think the Achilles heel is, and then what I think the upside is. Sound like a fair deal? Great. I'm looking forward to it. Jason, you're up.
By the way, you got a great name, too, just to let you know. Yes. So speaking there, good morning, my name is Jason Jones, and I'm part of Track 3. In 2014, I was given the opportunity to participate in an entrepreneurship program called The Last Mile. It was there I founded an ed tech company called GPA, Getting Parents' Attention. The Last Mile challenged me to combine my passion with technology in such a way that it will assist others that are in need. Needless to say, the foundation of GPA lies in my own personal experiences. See, I come from an environment where being street smart is valued over being book smart. And my household consisted of a single mother that struggled to provide for her 4 children. So for me, attention was very rare. One of the outlets I found helpful was playing football. And by my senior year, I received athletic scholarship offers from a number of universities, such as Oklahoma, Oregon, and Colorado. I was unable to take advantage of these opportunities because my grades did not meet their standards, and I wasn't prepared for the SATs. Sadly, every year, every semester, every season, there are athletes that excel in their sport, but not in the classroom. And as a result, they become a statistic of missed opportunities. That's why it's GPA's mission to establish the support team needed for every student athlete to not only have a quality education, but success in the future. Now, from a design point of view, I wanted to turn your mobile device into an academic scoreboard. So I added a custom alert feature, which allows the user to have full control over when and how they get alerted. We allowed a parent to set the goal of the student athlete. And whenever the student athlete's grade point average drops further away from that goal, alerts are sent out to the parent, coach, and teacher. That way, everybody is up to date in real time with that child's educational development. We also host team competitions. However, this is not your traditional sports team competition. With GPA, teams compete with their team's overall grade point average. That way, we influence teamwork outside the realm of sports. And just to enhance the user experience, I added a swipe gesture for easy navigation. The languages I utilized to create this app were jQuery Mobile and D3. However, for the core functionality, I use vanilla JavaScript and plain CSS. I've been in this program since the beginning of it in 2014, and before this, I had no prior experience with coding or computer programming or anything. And I find it ironic that the birth of this program happened on my 31st birthday. And the reason why I say ironic is because in most cultures, birth is seen as a symbol of new life or new start. So for me, GPA, this program, this whole environment is not just another new startup. For me, it's a new start. Thank you.
Right off the bat, you're a confident speaker. Good job. Thank you. You're confident. You got a personal story. So in entrepreneurship, a lot of investors are looking and saying, why does this matter to you? Why is this personal? Because if you wake up one day and you say, I want to do a business where I help farmers, be more efficient. Have you ever farmed? Do you give a shit about farming? What does farming mean to you? And you're like, I don't know. I read somewhere agriculture's like this $20 billion market. What happens is you wake up every day. Most days as an entrepreneur, 99 out of 100, they're not like these glorious, amazing like IPO days where they ring the bell and they're high-fiving and everything works. Most days are grinding it out. It doesn't work. You're trying to get the features to work, and you're getting no traction. Nobody's using the product, and you sit there and you're just like, oh, this is painful. So if it matters to you personally, when you wake up in the morning, even if it's not a good day, you're like, well, this matters to me because I was a student and I had this problem, and I want to see the world change. So number one, great presenter. Your enthusiasm is just there, and you're a great communicator. Like why this exists in the world is clear. Number two, it's personal to you. So that means as an investor, I wouldn't have to worry like, oh, is he going to wake up? Is Jesse going to wake up on day 100 and be like, I got a better idea, or I don't want to do this anymore. So that's good. The product itself, so we'll get into the product. The fact that you built it all yourself and you're also the founder, very powerful. There's a group of founders who have to go pay money to people to build their app. So they kind of become disconnected. Sort of like if you wanted to run a restaurant, but you're not a chef. Well, like, what does a restaurant do? They make food. So you don't know how to cook, and you want to put food on people's plates. It's like, well, roll up your sleeves, put an apron on, and make some food, and understand what tastes good and what doesn't. If you don't understand what tastes good or how to prepare food, it's pretty hard to be a great restaurateur. It has happened, but it's harder. So the fact that you know how to design the product and you know how to write the code means you're getting closer to it as a user, so it's personal. On the product, there's a gem of an idea in there somewhere, what spoke to me about the idea was, okay, the parents are not completely involved, and if they were more involved, that might increase success. That's sort of your central premise. And that's a very personal learning because you're like, well, my mom wasn't as involved as she could have been, or whatever the situation was. So that's the gem of the idea here. The features and how you go solving for that, that could happen any different way. So what I think you need to do is, when this gets into market, you would test it and say, does this actually solve the problem of getting mom and dad more involved with the student and the parents with the teachers, right? Because you have three people in this marketplace: the student, parents, and the teachers and educators. So it's a three-sided marketplace, three participants. So this is a product that hasn't been in the market yet, so you have no data, right? And you're sitting here looking at all the features and just building features. What we call that in the venture space is, or what I call it, is the feature death march, which is, I'm just going to keep adding features to this, right? And some of the most elegant, great products have less features. They're just single function, and apps are one of them. So what I would encourage you to do when you get this into market is to think about, how can I make it simpler? Now that you've built it and you've got a ton of features on it, it's almost like you built this buffet with a bunch of different food, 20 different items. Now you got to kind of go down and sample and say, you know what? This is my strongest item. This is my signature dish. This is the reason why people come to my buffet, and then cut all the other shit out. And be like, you know what? You tried everything, but this is a chicken and waffles place, or this is a seafood place, or this is a steak joint. And just have one thing that you can own. So think about that with your product. Of what feature could you really own? The design is like a 6 or a 7, so there's a lot of improvement you could do there. And there's a lot of features. So when you have all these buttons, you have to just think about, like, what am I going to do? And the new concept in apps now is to have one singular goal. So you open it up, and it just tells you what to do, and it's super apparent. So Uber would be the perfect example of it. You open up, you see a map, and you see taxis on the map, and you say, bring me a car to pick me up and drive me somewhere. Very simple. And then you can always add more features. So in terms of building out, in the restaurant analogy that we're using, it'd be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to start a place that does steak. And then we'll do some lobster tails once in a while, and we'll try to get that right. And then maybe in year 3, we'll add another feature. So you're sort of getting people acclimated to the product, getting traction on the core feature, and then moving there. So if you looked at a matrix, you can make this XY matrix. How often does somebody use the feature, right? So do they use it every day? And then how many people out of your base of users use it? Do 1%, 50%, or 100? And when you look in that top quadrant, right up here in the corner, what feature when you're on Facebook, does everybody use every day? Well, everybody looks at the wall, where everybody puts, the pictures and comments on the Facebook wall. So every day, everybody uses that. But then there might be something like Facebook groups, where you talk in a group and you set up an event. Well, it might be like half the people use that, and they use it 1/3 of the time. So what you're looking for as an entrepreneur is, what's the thing that everybody uses every time they're in my product? Do you have an idea of what everybody would use? Which one feature would be the most used in this?
The real-time updates.
Perfect. So now that you know it's the real-time updates, that they're getting updates on what's going on, then if you took everything else out and you opened it up, and it was just whatever the key statistic was, Jason accomplished this today, and it could just be a chat interface or something very simple, and people just talked about Jason's accomplishments, and hey, way to go, Jason. And then it said, this is what Jason needs to do next to be successful. Because that really is sometimes the most important thing, is what's next. So think about the interface, and maybe think about simplifying it. You went with a Tinder-like interface with the swipes. That's one interface metaphor. Another interface metaphor is just the chat, up and down, right? So SMS chats, boom, 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 boom. So that might be one. Another one's the feed. Like Twitter and Facebook have a feed of information, little boxes that you scroll up and down, right? So Tinder has left and right cards. Facebook, Twitter have up and down scroll. Then Snapchat, SMS messaging, WhatsApp all have chat, right? So this might be better with that metaphor. So then once you figure out what is that top feature, what's your signature dish in that restaurant, the steak, then you can figure out what's the best way to deliver it. So should it be on a plate? Should it be in a bowl? Should it be on a tray? You start to think about how is it delivered. So you've got the kernel of a good idea. You've got execution that I would say is solid. But most of all, the thing that's best about your pitch right now is it's personal, and you're enthusiastic about it. And that's what you all have to sort of get to. It's fine to screw around with a lot of different projects and play with it, just like you might in the kitchen cook a bunch of different dishes. But at a certain point, you got to say, you know what, this is what I stand for. This is what's important to me. And the fact that you found that already is great, because now you just have to figure out how to prepare it and how to deliver it. Because I can tell it's very personal to you. So that's great as an entrepreneur. I think big round of applause for Jason. Hey, everybody, we have a great new partner here at This Week in Startups, and it's adroll.com. Adroll.com. And what they do is retargeting. What is retargeting? That's when you visit one website, and then, if you're the website owner, you can retarget ads to that individual when they're on other websites. We've all seen this. You search for something on a website, and then when you're on Facebook or on Google or some other site, you see an ad that's not generic and boring and has nothing to do with what you're interested in, or ugly. You see things that you're interested in. This is great for the consumer because they get ads that they would be interested in. And it's great for the publishers because the publishers get to make money from ads that are targeted. And of course, it's great for the sites and the startups. One of our startups, as you know, I'm an investor in Rapify. James Heller, who is the founder of Rapify, says AdRoll is an integral part of his customer acquisition strategy. It allows us to continue to garner impressions long after the initial customer interaction. For example, somebody comes to the Rapify website. You can now then keep retargeting them and sending them different creative ways to engage with, say, their product, Rapify. It's also one of the most cost-effective tools to bolster any integrated marketing strategy. What he means there, James from Rapify, is, hey, it's super effective. If somebody comes to your website, you know there's someone interested. It's like they walked into your store, but they left. They weren't ready to buy, but they wanted to check out your store. Well, you know what? The second, third, fourth time, fifth time, that could be the charm. And this is why those ads are much more targeted and better for the person who's running the ads. It's basically more efficient for the entire ecosystem when it comes to it. And AdRoll is the most widely used retargeting platform. If you haven't heard of retargeting, look it up. They have over 25,000 advertisers using adroll.com, and they convert window shoppers into buyers. As I'm saying, it's super efficient for everybody involved in the ecosystem. And you'll get access to 500 plus ad exchanges, including the Facebook and the Google, as we call them. And you're going to reach potential customers across all devices, browsers, and apps. This balances usability with powerful performance. Machine learning and data science is used to bid on ads quickly and effectively. And so your budget's going to go further if you're a startup company or a marketer. And that eliminates all that wasted ad spend. You don't want to spend money on people who are not interested in your product. If they would never come into your store, why would you spend money on people who are not interested? I mean, think about it. Retargeting is just so brilliant. And it's a really new scientific way to do marketing, and people love it. People on all sides of the transaction love it. Established people like Pantheon and Doc Martens and thousands of emerging businesses are using AdRoll, and you can get $100 credit. That's right. You'll get a $100 credit to get started as a new customer at adroll.com/twist. I know a lot of you are using it already. If you're already using it, you don't get that $100 ad credit. But if you're new customers, you're going to get a $100 credit just for trying it by going to adroll.com/twist. Adroll.com/twist. This really works. Retargeting is one of the great, amazing innovations of the last 10 years, and AdRoll does it really well. Go ahead and check them out, adroll.com/twist, and welcome to the This Week in Startups family.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Big Az. I'm a Track 1 student in the Coding 7370 program and also a Last Mile graduate. Today, I turned on the news and I saw that 2 wildfires had merged in Southern California, forcing the evacuation of thousands of people. I can really empathize with these people because several years ago I called home and was told that my Uncle Terry had lost his house in the San Diego wildfire. Fate had come out of nowhere and blazed through the Jamul Valley and destroyed his entire community. When I first heard this, my first reaction was I was happy because my family was safe. But then I started to think about the house and all of the memories that it held, all of the family photographs, my grandfather's World War II medals, all of it was gone forever. It really sucked. Well, I had to do something, and I'd been a volunteer firefighter when I was younger, and I'd learned that fire needs 3 things to exist: oxygen, fuel, and heat. If we take any one of these out of the equation, fire just doesn't happen. Knowing this, I created the Fate Exterior Fire Protection System. This is an aesthetically designed PVC sprinkler system attached to the exterior of the client's residence. This is hooked up to an electrical pump and 2 stationary tanks. One a 1,500-gallon water tank, the other a much smaller tank holding eco-friendly fire retardant. Heat sensors are then strategically placed around the property's perimeter. And when fire danger approaches, they send a digital signal to the system's brain, activating it. Once activated, the system disperses a mix of water and fire retardant, covering the home in a protective shield, taking away both heat and fuel, thereby breaking up the fire triangle. My passion to protect people and their property from raging wildfire is not only needed today, it's also a possibility. With the mentorship provided to me through the Last Mile Entrepreneurship Program and the Coding 7370 computer program, I've developed the tools I need to see my dream come true. I used to be a technological caveman, but the Last Mile has showed me that all things are possible if we just believe in the process. Today, I'm no longer a tech Neanderthal. I'm utilizing technology to build my passion so that no family will ever have to experience what mine did. Today, fate is in our hands. We just have to grab it. Thank you.
So right off the bat, once again, like, it's very personal, right? Like, your uncle's house burned down. There were metals in there. And so as a presenter, you're a great natural, passionate presenter. So 2 for 2 right now, Chris. Very good. A lot of passion in the room. And somebody is, I think, directing you to make products that are personal, that you have some. So somebody must have had that talk earlier. What's great about it is, what's great about your presentation, we'll start there, because presenting your ideas is critically important in the world. People judge books by their cover. People make logos and they design things beautifully for a reason. People make purchasing decisions based on how things are packaged. People make judgments on people on how they're packaged. The Apple minis that are behind your Dell screens, are they Dell screens? Acer? So you have this like gorgeous computer on the back and this horrible looking Acer in the front. That's why the Acer company is worth nothing and the Apple company is going to be one of the first $1 trillion companies on the planet, them or Amazon. Because one company actually takes pride in what they build and the finishes and how well designed it is. That happens to be hidden behind the ugly piece of shit Acer monitor, but you get the idea. So, you know, when you present it so well, so passionately, it just makes people want to listen. Then you had examples and details of why this matters in your presentation. So I always tell people when you're presenting, the details matter. So it's fine if you're passionate, but if you're just passionate and you're just screaming and you're at the top of your lungs and you've got a great energy, but there's no detail level, then you're just like some loudmouth, right? You had detail in there. You're like, oh, well, you know, he lost those metals. Because I was just like, well, you know, homes are kind of replaceable, and it's really people being safe is a key thing. But it's like, oh, wow, the metals, and there's things in the home that you really are irreplaceable. So there is actually, yeah, wow, I'm kind of buying your story as you use more rich examples. And because you used a specific example of his metals, that was memorable. So it's interesting. The more detail level you put in a presentation, if you said it was his Purple Heart from World War II that he got for storming the beach in Normandy, we would actually all remember that. So the more detail you put in a presentation, the greater people's recall is, which you would think would be the opposite. Like, oh, if I pound a lot of details in here, they're actually not going to remember it. Actually, that's the opposite of how memory works. So you did a really great presentation. And the piece that it's going to lack, and the question that will come up is, okay, what other solutions are out there? Well, how do people currently solve this problem? So that's one, which is the actual design of the product. So the Mac Mini was designed to be the super powerful computer for $400. That's this big. That's so small you can just put it on the back of a cheap $100 monitor. So what is it about the design of your product that's competitive? Have you gotten to that point yet? So that's just an open question.
Not yet, because okay. I've been in prison for nearly 20 years now, so I haven't had the ability to actually be out in the real world where I've had the, any opportunity to build or engineer. Right. And with the product, having served as a volunteer firefighter, I remember that a lot of times our time was spent protecting homes instead of on the front line fighting the fire. And that was why the idea came up also, because those resources could better be spent, on the front lines putting the fire out. And then when my uncle, he lost his home, and that was bad. And like, I'm talking to him and he goes, I'm in the parking lot at the San Diego Stadium with the Red Cross looking out for me. It's like, wow, something needs to be done, because those resources that we're trying to protect 100 homes when they're only suitable to protect 20, they're losing homes.
So one of the interesting things in your presentation that stuck with me was the sensor. So when you did your little graphic of the fire coming, the sensor fires. And I just thought to myself, So there's a question we ask in the angel investing and venture businesses, why now? So this business could have existed any time over the last 100 years. And in fact, people did put sprinklers on the top of homes. They kind of stopped doing that because they made fire retardant roofs. Like they no longer allow you in some areas to put wood shake on the roof. You have to use these composite materials so that it doesn't thing. So why now means what has changed in the technological landscape that makes this possible now. So every time a new piece of technology comes out, it's an opportunity to address every single aspect of our society. So when mobile phones came out, it was like, okay, how does this affect navigation? Just driving around. It's like, oh, well, we no longer have to carry those books and maps that we used to carry in our glove compartments, right? We'd all have those glove compartments, and if you went on a trip, what did you do? Well, I have to stop at a gas station and get a map of, because I only have maps up until, this exit. I got to stop. We got to stop and get a map. The idea that we stopped to get maps is like, really? You stopped and bought a map? Yeah, no, there were places you could stop that had maps on the outside of the window. Get here to get your map so you don't get lost. The phone changed that, right? So now sensor technologies is what's changed that, I think. And so that's super interesting. And there might be other things that have changed in the world on a technological basis that you could apply to this general concept of protecting homes. So the sensors are really interesting. So sensors are getting very cheap, and people are using them in places like Yellowstone and other Yosemite, different public parks to do things like weather and stuff like that. But for fire, that could be very interesting to sell to a municipality. If there was a municipality that had, let's say it was like a private community that had 10,000 acres and there's 1,000 homes in it. Well, if each home put 10 of your sensors in, and they were all networked, and those sensors costed $50 to install, it'd be $500 per home. But the value of the homes is going to be hundreds of thousands to millions. So if they each agreed to put those sensors in, made a map, maybe we would actually know when the fire spread, and everybody could just get an alert. Hey, 1 sensor's off. Hey, 2 sensors have gone off. Hey, 6 sensors have gone off. And that original kernel of idea, the prevention, maybe it's not about the sprinkler going off. Maybe it's just about those sensors being every acre, there being a sensor. And so this is the great thing about entrepreneurship. And when you get out, and I hope it's soon, you'll start to see like, oh my God, this sensor technology is just insane. And maybe they can get you some sensors here. Thinking from the bottom up, okay, I have a goal of protecting homes, and there's a bunch of new technology out there, and then you just start brainstorming. And this is where having a co-founder is super great, because remember I talked before how most days suck as an entrepreneur? If you have a co-founder, it's like, okay, well, if you and Jason were working on this idea, and Jason said, my idea is not ready yet, but I want to work with AZ on this one, because this one sounds like it's going to make more money and be more important in the world, and just more fun to work on, whatever the reason is. You could riff on these ideas. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did that? And then that sort of creative brainstorming about what new technologies is out. Another new technology that's out is there's all kinds of new chemicals out in terms of fire retarding stuff and all kinds of other sensors that maybe you can go and retrofit homes, and maybe there's something you could spray on them, and that would help stop these things. Maybe there's something you can do just in terms of temperature and understanding the precursors to what starts a fire, right? So big idea. So the other thing we think of is, okay, you got a great founder, they're passionate, they got this great idea, then we have to determine how big's the market. Now some markets are obvious. We know how many, as an example, we know how many human beings there are, and we know how many calories they need to eat, so we get an idea generally of how big the food system is, right? We know everybody's got to eat 2,200 calories a day. Some people eat a little more. Sometimes it's a new market that we didn't anticipate. So what's the market for mobile phones? Well, the idea of having a supercomputer in your pocket didn't exist before 10 years ago. So the market was zero. You only used a computer when you were at a desk. The idea that you had a computer with you when you were in the movies? What? Is a computer in your car? How? The computer costs $3,000. The car costs $20,000. You put a $3,000 computer in the car, and now computers cost $100, of course. Put 2 in your car. So I think that this is one of those markets that's just very easy to quantify. We know that there are 150 million homes. We know there are 400 million, commercial buildings, whatever it is. In this country, we know how many there are in other countries. We also know how many are damaged by fire because there's insurance out there. We know the size of the insurance market. So you can start to triangulate, and that's what, I'm an angel investor, but what venture capitalists do is they really put quants on this, like really smart math kids, from Harvard or MIT, or just wonky kids in spreadsheets who just start looking for data to try to figure out how big the market is, so that when they put millions of dollars in something, they're making a very educated guess. That's another great part of your concept here. And so, great start. Is there any way for you to do research on sensors here, or you're not allowed on the open internet, so you have to order books and stuff?
It's quite like when you talk about cell phones being pocket computers, most of them have been in prison.
Oh, use your microphone. Yeah.
When you talk about, it's funny because when you talk about, cell phones being supercomputers in your pocket, most of us don't understand that, because a lot of us, when we were arrested, they were pagers.
Yeah.
And now people, like the younger guys in here, when you tell them, like, I carried a pager out there, they're like, what the hell was a pager?
Exactly.
But with sensors, we're not allowed to have them now.
Right.
But we do a lot of reading. There's a lot of old school research of getting books and opening the books and reading it. And the Last Mile, they do provide us with a lot of those resources. So
think about the sensor network concept, right? So right now you're thinking about protecting the home when you're thinking about like reacting to the fire. Take it a step further, like knowing where the fire is and the second it happens, or knowing the fire in the first 15 minutes and how to stop it. Because you have a huge important industry. And by the way, with global warming, which I don't know if you're experiencing up here in San Quentin, but you've been here for 20 years, it's getting a little bit hotter every year. Like San Francisco is turning into Los Angeles. Los Angeles is turning into Mexico. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in Mexico. It's going to turn into like an inferno down there. But literally temperatures are going up like a degree every 10, 20 years, and it's going to be 10 degrees hotter, and it's going to change everything. And these wildfires, places like, speaking of AZ, Arizona, and some of those places are right now, this week, in this crazy heat wave. Well, when these crazy heat waves happen, fires happen, and then houses burn. So your global warming is horrible for humanity and great for your startup. Which is another why now, right? Like, we talked about why now. That's another reason, global warming heating the planet. Really well done. Let's hear it for AZ.
I love Squarespace. I use Squarespace all the time. It is a fabulous product. And you can go to launchangelsummit.com. I had this crazy idea. What if I take 25 angel investors and I bring them to Napa and we spend 2 or 3 days together just playing cards, going on hikes, spa, drinking fine wine, and talking about our angel investments. I was like, that's a good idea. And I just tell my team, put up a website and put a beautiful video on it. And look at this gorgeous website. It looks like I spent $1 million on it. And in fact, we got it up in literally under an hour. And we have people requesting events, requesting invitations to it. And you can put these beautiful videos on the site, as you can see. And that's the beauty of Squarespace. You can make a gorgeous website instantly. And it's state-of-the-art tech. It's super secure, super stable. It's trusted by millions, including some of the most respected brands in the world. And really, what it's about is being able to make a quick landing page or a website or an online store quickly, easily, and beautifully. Start your trial today. No credit card is required. You can get a free domain when you sign up for a year. And when you decide to sign up for Squarespace, please use the offer code TWIST and get 10% off your first purchase. Yes, use the promo code TWIST when you decide to sign up for Squarespace. It's a beautiful, easy-to-use product. All the members of my team know how to update the website now. All of them know how to use all the great features on it. And when we want to make a beautiful website, literally, this has taken out the agony and pain and made our organization so much faster. When your team knows how to build a website or build a landing page and test something, everything gets easier. And Squarespace is one of our secret weapons here at the Launch Festival, the Launch Angel Summit, and This Week in Startups. We just roar through all the work we have to do in building these websites, and they all look gorgeous. I mean, they really look like we hired an outside, like mega expensive design firm and spent $50,000 or $250,000 making these websites. They look beautiful, and it's easy to do. Go ahead and visit squarespace.com and use that promo code TWIST, as in This Week in Startups. And everybody, go ahead and say thank you to our friends at Squarespace on your Twitter handle. They love seeing those thank yous. Okay, let's get back to this program.
Good morning. My name is Chris Schuhmacher. I'm currently in track 3 of the coding program, and I'm a graduate of the Last Mile. In 2012, as part of the Last Mile program, they asked me to develop an idea that involved 3 components, something that I was passionate about, something that involved a technology, and something that gave back to the community. So in telling you that, I tell you this, that 16 years ago, my addiction to drugs and alcohol spiraled out of control. It led me to a life sentence in prison. Realizing the harm that I caused would motivate me to stop using and start looking to fitness, technology, and now coding for a new way of life. So today I'm proud to tell you about Fitness Monkey, an online life coaching service that empowers addiction recovery through physical fitness. At Fitness Monkey, we provide personalized playbooks designed to assist members of all levels and lifestyles to overcome substance abuse by developing a healthy addiction to fitness. We provide online drug and alcohol education and provide the court-mandated documentation to keep our members on the right side of the law. And by downloading the Fitness Monkey mobile app, members will be able to track their fitness and recovery success let me just say that when I created this idea in 2012, all this was just an idea on paper. Now, as part of the coding program, I actually got a chance to build the Fitness Monkey personal health and recovery tracker. And let me tell you why this is important. Because it allows a recovering addict to track their days clean and provides them with metrics and data visualizations that will help them stay above the relapse zone. Through the app, members are able to log workouts and track their progress in real time. In addition, they can track their relapses, so we can start to collect data on the individual member, and that way we can either push alerts or notices that will consistently help them to stay above the relapse zone. And another part about Fitness Monkey that's super important is the social component. It allows members to connect with other members in their support network. Fitness Monkey is a product of my life and my life sentence. I feel before this program, I had, countless hours playing video games, but absolutely 0 hours learning how to code. So I feel like this has really changed the trajectory of my life. So today, I'm asking you to join me and become part of the recovery revolution of the Fitness Monkey.
You keep that microphone. Good job. Tell me your name again.
Chris.
Schuhmacher. Okay. So, once again, a couple of the early check boxes. He's passionate and it's personal. Then, just another pro tip. When you have good-looking, what we call a dashboard like this. This is dashboard porn, which is just anytime there's a dashboard, it's just like, oh, that looks so good. Like, oh, I want to know. It's moving. Ooh, wow. What is this? Explain this to me. Like data. Ooh, it's like people love this kind of stuff. So it looks good. At first, I had this one red flag. So one of the things that happens as an investor is you get signaling. So every time I meet with a founder, I try to tell them, hey, here's what I think's good, here's what I think's challenging, here's what I think's bad, just be as candid as possible. And then over time, you make mistakes. You miss certain investments, and then you go, how did I miss it? What didn't I see? And one of the things that I notice often is people try to do what's called boiling the ocean, which you can imagine is a difficult task because the ocean is big. And what boiling the ocean means is, it's a fancy way of saying you're taking on too much. So I first thought, it's a recovery platform and fitness. It started with fitness, and then it went to recovery, and then back to fitness, and I was like, oh, wait a second. So I actually had my own I think I was wrong, which is I thought that fitness and recovery were two different things, because I haven't gone through recovery. But then I know all these people who went through recovery, and actually, as I started thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, that guy got like crazy about kickboxing. Oh yeah, that person became a marathon runner. Oh yeah, why is that? Why is fitness like this dovetail with so well with recovery? Can you answer that question? Why is recovery and fitness somehow aligned so often? I don't know any of the research on it, so.
Right. Actually, it's been proven that cardio exercise, strength training exercises provide the same endorphins and chemicals in the brain, the opioid producing systems that alcohol and drug produced. So it's almost like a replacement.
So here's a great tip when you're doing it. So this is anticipating, right? So now you have feedback from one investor. When you go to the next one, you're like, Jason's feedback was he didn't know any of the research on it. So you have a slide. By the way, here's something you might not know. In a Harvard study, they said that marathon running, strength training, and yoga all released a similar amount of dopamine to cocaine, heroin, And when Alcoholics Anonymous and this recovery company, this company, they all have in their top 3 things to do is to have a daily workout. That's their top recommendation in the top 1 or 2. This is for a reason. There is a direct correlation between relapse and lack of, if you exercise, your chances of relapsing go down. If you don't exercise, your chances of relapsing go up. So you're just sort of educating the audience, the investors. So educating your investors, what that does is it gets them nodding. So if you get people nodding during your presentation, then when you tell them your idea, they're nodding, right? And so this is how some of the great presenters of all time, Steve Jobs is on the wall, is he would start telling you this story like, and you're ever out with your kids and then you have the phone and you're out on a business trip and you want to talk to them and you call them on the phone, but you feel guilty because you're away traveling. Well, what if you could take out your phone and you could FaceTime with them and you could see their faces and put your kids to bed? Like he's telling us this story. We're nodding. Oh yeah, I would like that. And he's like, oh yeah, and by the way, look, here's FaceTime. It's built into every iPhone. Now you can go do video conferencing for free. So you're a storyteller and you get us nodding. So by giving us data and facts from other credible sources, you build your own credibility. So you're just building up your credibility. It also happens to be what stage hypnotists do and some con artists do, which they do is they just tell you a truth, a lie, and then a truth, and they just sort of slip it in there. And your brain cognitively, for hypnotists, and L. Ron Hubbard, the guy from Scientology, was actually a stage hypnotist. And the way he would do this, it's a hypnotizing technique called the rabbit hole, which is I tell you fact, something that's not true, fact, nothing not true, fact. And all of a sudden your mind is so receptive because you've been accepting facts that the things that are even not true or just things that you want people to believe become more true. So it's important to understand how that works because I've had people who I don't think they actually have a good product, but they presented such a good story filled with so many facts and so many pieces of evidence. I find myself nodding yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm hypnotized. Break out of this spell. But you can use it for good too. All these things you can use for good and evil, superpowers. But more data backing you up. It looks great. It's personal. Business model. How does it make money?
That's a great question. Initially, I want to build the community because I think there's a lot of recovering addicts out there that can use the service. There's countless fitness apps already on the market, but an app that combines both of them. One way I thought that we could make money is through advertising with either gyms, healthcare professionals, personal trainers, as well as all the merchandise that goes along with that.
Right. So this is the inevitable question you get from an investor: how do you make money? Because we're going to give you money, and we don't want you to just build a product and have it not make money. So what you want to do is just pick an answer and stand behind it 100%. There are a very small number of ways people make money in the internet and in business. Either you sell people stuff, or you sell those people in a large enough group to an advertiser, or you white label it for a business. So the way I would present it is say, hey, and Fitness Monkey is available for $10 a month. We think that means the lifetime value we think is 18 months, so we're going to make $80 per customer over 18 months. We think we can acquire those customers. We can do advertising to get new customers for $50, which means we think we're going to have a net profit of 180 minus 50, $80. Now, no, that's wrong, 130. Business is more profitable than that. The next way to say it would be, and we're going to do an advertising-based business. We can acquire customers for free. We're going to give it away for free, so we can acquire them all day long for $1 each. And we think we can add, we can grow 50% a month for the first 2 years, and we'll get to 10 million people. And by the way, this is a coveted audience because if you actually land somebody in a treatment center, you get a commission of $1,000. And actually, that's actually the case. These addiction centers, they pay a commission if you bring them somebody into recovery, because recovery is $20,000, $30,000. It's incredibly expensive. And in fact, it's a major crisis with the opioid stuff because there's so many people on oxys and all this other crazy stuff that I think even if you come in and you say, I want to get clean, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get into a program. It's like, yeah, what's going to happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks? A person might change their mind or get, lured, into something. So this idea that you could actually make a commission. So we're going to make it free, but we're going to get that referral fee from them. And then the third way is we are going to build a platform and we're going to white label it, which means we're going to take our Fitness Monkey name out and we're going to put, St. Jude's Recovery Center up there, and we're going to give it to them because you know what? There's over 3,000 recovery centers in the world, in the United States. Those 3,000 recovery centers, process, an aggregate 500,000 people a year, and they don't have the ability to build the software. So we're going to just charge them, $40,000 a year to have up to 1,000 people on the platform and put their logo on it, and that's how they're going to, have more efficacy, so they can get more government dollars, whatever. So there's really only 3 ways. The rookie entrepreneurs say, I'm going to make money this way. And then there's like a pause typically, and then they tell me, and this way. And then they pause, and this way. And I'm waiting for them to finish, but they think I'm not agreeing with them. So then they say a 4th way. And then and then we're going to sell our data. So whatever data we have, we'll sell it to people 5th way. And then we're going to do merchandise. We're going to make t-shirts a 6th way. And then you look at all the great companies. Like, how does Apple make money? They sell you the product, and the profit's in the product. How does Google make money? They have an advertising network and they give everything away for free. Google Chrome is free, Android is free, the search engine is free, they monetize you with advertising. Apple sells hardware, Google does advertising. It's the bigger the company and the more successful, the less ways they try to make money. They find one way and they pound it. They build a money printing machine and then they just make the machine faster and bigger, and then they try to make multiple copies of the machine. So I think you got to just plant a flag and say, our business model is X. And then let the investor say, you know what, I think you should do this business model. And it's almost like clockwork. You say, I'm going to do, $10 a month per person. They go, oh, why don't you white label it and give it to, treatment centers? And then you say, oh, I'm going to do treatment centers. These VCs are just like, and the investor, oh, well, why don't you just charge people $10 a month? Why do you got to go through the? So it's a little maddening as an entrepreneur, but just plant a flag. It's really, really, really well done. So let's hear it for Chris.
Okay, guys.
Sure.
So here's your chance to ask a question. We're going to take, how many questions are we going to take?
As many as you want.
All right. I know you guys have been thinking about this. Who would like to ask Jason a question? You have to come up and come on up.
Oh, they want to get you on mic, or we can pass the mic. Whatever you want to do.
We don't know wireless.
Oh, no wireless. Okay, that's about as far as it goes. Okay.
Say your name first.
My name is Pun. Some of the guys call me Sane. Welcome, Sane. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Once we leave, we're gonna endure a lot of look downs and this and that. What's your biggest uplifting comments or inspires us to move forward in our direction? Because we're gonna get a lot of negative feedback. This is not.
Yeah. Wow, that's a heavy question. Wow, it's all of a sudden very real. What is my advice? Gosh, I can't imagine what you guys are going through. And, you make a mistake and then you pay for an extremely long period of time. But I think every day of life is worth living. And I've seen many people who were down and out do amazing things in the later half of their life. In fact, there's this mythology that only young people do great things in the technology business, and I see over and over again 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds come out with incredible products that change the world. So I really actually do believe that every day is worth living, and that being an entrepreneur is the most rewarding thing you can do in the world. And again, as I said earlier, everybody starts the same way, which is with that blank sheet of code, the blank piece of paper. And everybody is awkward and an outsider in this space, the technology space. Everybody's an outsider, everybody's awkward. Nobody's born into it, really, because the technology industry is too new, right? Computers only existed, as far as the public is concerned, since the early 80s, when the PC came out and people started buying them for homes. Really only hit penetration by the 90s. Online only hit penetration in the late 90s. So we're really, my generation, Gen X, is really the first one, the millennials actually, the people who are under 30, the first ones to grow up with it. Gen X, my generation, people in their 40s now, they're the first group that actually had it as adults but didn't have it as kids. So it's pretty much new to everybody. And so it's not like there's somebody who is like, I am a 4th generation Harvard graduate. I'm a 4th generation internet, person. It's like you're part of the first wave. It's almost like even now we're only in the commercialization of the internet started in the mid 90s. So we're really only 20 years into this story. That's like if you said, oh my God, you're in the TV business in the 20th year that TV's existed. It's like, yeah, Sopranos, Seinfeld, MASH, none of these things have existed before. All the great TV shows, Game of Thrones, like there is so much great stuff left to be built. Most problems have not been solved. So, AZ, you've been in here for 20 years. Like, I don't know how much you got left, but, if you get a couple of good years when you're done, you could do something great. And, everybody starts in the same place when it comes to creativity. Now, there are people who are rich, they start on third base, the parent give them a bunch of money, whatever. Fuck them, I'm not. And I say fuck them only because I'm not one of them. If I was one of them, I'd be pretty stoked, but I wasn't. And you guys are starting, you're sandbagged, right? You're starting, the world's against you to a certain extent. People are going to count you out. And but the truth is, the product speaks. If the product is good, the people consuming the product don't know who built it. There's a sort of funny expression, like nobody on the internet knows you're a dog, because people are just joking, like, well, maybe it's like I could be like chatting on the internet with a dog. Nobody would ever know. Like nobody on the internet actually knows who's making any of this stuff. And I frequently see people who come from nothing, from nowhere, and make great shit. So every day is the first day, and entrepreneurship is open to everybody. And you know what? The people in our industry only care about performance. So when literally, if your product is growing and great, and then they find out, oh, you're a felon and you were in San Quentin, they might for a second be like, oh, whoa, that's heavy. And then they'd be like, what's the growth? How many users do you have? How much money are you making? And like the venture capitalists and the people in the industry are marauders. They just want to make money. That's like the whole name of the game is I want to build the next $1 billion company. So it really is, if you have the skills, open to everybody. And that's the number one thing. The skills also trump everything. So if you're a great designer and you make beautiful stuff in the world, if you're a great coder and you write great code, you win. And the world needs great designers and great coders. So, just get your skills tight. If your skills are great, then that speaks, right? Nobody cares, how many, nobody really cares the background of successful people. Like, oh, whatever happened? I don't know. I just love that person's music. I just love that person's art. I love that person's product. So just make great product. That's all you can do in this life, I think, is that you can like get up every day and just try to make good stuff. And then try to make your good stuff great, and then try to make your great stuff transcendent. Just work on your craft. And you got time.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck, man. They're heavy questions, man.
That's a good answer.
I gotta think. Usually I get questions like, so Jason, what do you think of the new iPhone operating system? Jason, what do you think, what can you tell us about life and how we should approach it? I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. I wake up every day asking that question. What should I do next? How you doing? Jason, serves my dad.
Damon Cook.
Damon?
Yes, sir.
Damon Cook, pleasure.
My question is, in 2007, you launched Mahalo.com.
Yeah. Failed.
Founded it.
And failed.
And failed. But I was curious about, because I come from that background, so I understand what that language is, the Polynesian language. Okay. And I was curious.
Why?
Why, yeah.
All right, that's a great question. So I started Mahalo, and my concept was, you had Google, which was a computer algorithm, and Google at the time was just 10 blue links. And then there was Wikipedia over here, where people were like writing articles. I was like, what if you kind of smash the two things together and you put like some search results and a bunch of content on the page, and you let people do it instead of computers. And I was going to originally name it 20.com, 20.com, 20 links, and then 20 photos and 20 videos. Eventually, Google wound up copying a lot of that stuff and adding photos and videos. But when I started telling people my new company was named 20.com, they're like, some guys were kind of like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, 20 list, I like that. And then I found actually with women and some people who are more artistic and just some group of people just didn't like it. They thought 20 was just a stupid name. It's a number. That was a good purchase of a domain name, though, because it turns out in China they name all the website numbers. So then I was in Hawaii with my wife, and we were on our honeymoon, and I kept seeing Mahalo everywhere. And I started really like, that's such a beautiful sounding word. And it's like aloha's the most important word, mahalo's kind of the second most used word, and kokua is another one, to help, to guide. So I said, okay, I'll buy aloha. And it was like, yeah, there's an airline, dumbass. And there was like also like the Hawaii government, I think, owned aloha.com, and then there was Aloha Airlines, so that wasn't available. So then at mahalo.com and kokua were. So I bought kokua for $5,000. I still own it. Haven't used it for anything. And then I tried to find the owner of Mahalo, and I couldn't find it. And then I found it. Some guy on one of the islands owned it. And he said, listen, I'll sell it to you. I like your idea. I told him the idea. And he said, but you have to promise me one thing. It's a very sacred word or whatever. And I said, what's that? He said, don't use it for porn. I said, what? He goes, the last person had a Mahalo. It's just a porn site. And I was like, oh. He's like, you don't understand. It's like a sacred word. You can't do that with the word. So then I said, yeah, I'm not going to do a porn site. I'll not use it for that. So yeah, that's where I came up with it, and I still have it. And so I'm kind of figuring out what to do with it next, because there was a Mahalo Airlines, you know. So are you from which island are you from, or you're just?
Well, I was raised here in the States, but I'm Polynesian.
Polynesian, yeah. So yeah, I just thought it was a beautiful word, because it means like thank you.
Yes.
But it's a fuller thank you, right?
Yes, sir.
It's a more soulful thankful. Explain to everybody what mahalo means versus thank you.
Okay, so for those who don't know, mahalo means thank you, but it also means thank you to your ancestors. Mahalo nui loa is what I would say to you. I'm extremely thankful for the opportunity that you've given me here today. So mahalo nui loa, and that what we do with what we work with is how our ancestors view us and how our legacy lives on.
Yes.
And so by you saying mahalo.com, and I was really curious, it's a human search engine, and now you clarified that for me. It was really
It was interesting too, because then I had a couple of Hawaiian people had emailed me and they said, hey, you're using this word. And one of them was a little upset about it. Like it was a little bit like, do you know that you're using this word? And I explained to them why I was using it. And they were like, oh, that's cool. Mahalo. And I was like, okay, good. So they're reasonable about it. But the Hawaiian culture, Polynesian culture is that's a very special culture. And I thought the word kokua, I liked even more. So explain what kokua means to people. Well, this is a very sacred word.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of enrichment with kokua. It has to do with the generations and how you uprise or uplift the people. That's one variation of it. Kuku also means it's a sacred word to the king or the chief, the ali'i, the chiefs. And they use the word in terms of this space right here. I would consider this space kukua because it's very enriching for me and as well as the guys in here. So just the entire, the fact that you used that language was real insightful for me, and I really appreciate you for using that.
Yes, it's very because it means to lead and to inspire. I was like, Kuku would be a really good name for a crowdfunding site. Like if a group of people wanted to do something together and put funding towards it. So I've been kind of holding on to it for that reason. I've been thinking about doing a crowdfunding site where if 10,000 people want to give $10 each to try to solve a problem, they would go to kukua.com. Maybe that could be the startup you work on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mahalo.
We're going to wrap because we're going to do some one-on-ones.
Okay. Did anybody else have any questions? I could do lightning round. This guy had a question. I feel like I got to answer. I'll do a lightning question. Yes. I feel like I got to answer the questions. Let's do one more. Yeah. Or two more. You got one too. Okay, 1, 2. We're going to do lightning. I'll do it in 1 minute. Okay. No problem. I think the questions are...
Okay,
I'm feeling the question part.
When you introduced yourself, you expressed that you were not the best student growing up.
Far from it.
Far from it. So my question is, being that you are successful and an entrepreneur guru, what would be, what's the foundation of, what would be the single foundation, excuse me, Jim. What would be at the base of your, what piece of education would you feel is at the foundation of your success?
That's a very good question, because I've thought about it a lot, because in the technology space, if I was working as, I don't know, a teacher or, any other profession that's not as explosively large as the technology industry, the success is not as magnified, right? But because technology is leading the world, if you're just even moderately successful, it's really big because so many people are using these devices all day long. And so I've thought about that a lot, because when you do become very successful. I'm much more successful than I thought I would be. You start to say, like, do I deserve this, or how did I get here, right? Like, and my brother is a fireman, and we were supposed to be cops together. So I took the New York City Police Department because they told me in high school, when I told them I wanted to go to Fordham, the college I wanted to go to, they said, you won't get in, and your probably college is not for you. They said, what else do you have? And so I told my person, I was like, I could be a cop. My grandfather was a fireman. I could be a cop or fireman. And like Irish kid from Brooklyn, they kind of steered you towards that because my grandfather was a fireman, my uncle was a cop, my cousin was a cop. Everybody was cops or firemen. So my brother went in and became a policeman. Then he became a fireman. And my brother and I have long talks about that. Like, what if I had become a cop with him and not been like a computer geek at the right time, right? So you gotta, like, if you pick the right beach to surf in, there's a lot of luck. Right? So if you decide to be a cop, there's like a limited upside of like how far you can go. Society has capped how successful you can be. When it comes to the technology business, what's great about it is there is no cap. You put an app in the App Store, most of them fail, most of them nobody ever downloads them, but if one hits, it could become huge, right? Because there are now 2 billion people with smartphones and hundreds of millions can get it. So when I look back, I think the thing that made me successful was I didn't actually think I was smart. So I said, since I'm not the smartest guy, I was very intimidated by the Harvard guys. I was very intimidated by the trust fund kids and the kids who grew up in Manhattan, whose dads were lawyers and all this kind of stuff, and successful bankers. I said, I got to work twice as hard. I got to have some skill. So I just embraced the technology skill. And I was like, I'll just learn how to do networking. So my first job was laser printers, fixing those, and then setting up these networks. So I just said, I got to put it all into skill. I got to pick like singular skills and learn them and be fearless. So then I was like, okay, I'm doing a magazine. I have no money to pay anybody, so I have to do PageMaker. I have to learn how to use this Quark Express. I have to learn how to use Photoshop. I got to learn how to do the photos. And you know what? I was never like a 10 out of 10 in any of those skills, but I was a 7 or an 8, and I didn't have to rely on anybody. And that's the thing that's the great myth, is everybody thinks like, oh, you got to go to Harvard, you got to go to these places, your dad's or mom's got to come from the right place, you got to have the pedigree. The world's changed. It's really about the skills now. So the singular piece of advice is to get those skills and refine those skills and be relentless, be ruthless about it, right? Like, there's guys in the yard, I'm watching them do chin-ups. I'm like, I can do 2 of those. And this guy hasn't not stopped doing chin-ups. And we've been sitting here for 5 fucking minutes. Like, holy shit. I want that guy on my team. So you gotta just be relentless about it. You gotta just pound it. Like, every piece of knowledge and every way you can sharpen those skills, do it. And then, be fearless about the failure, because again, as somebody who never thought they would be successful and was told, I told my dad to a pivotal moment in my life. I told my dad, who was an alcoholic and he owned a bar, I was going to run the marathon. And he said to me, I'll pick you up on 86th Street and 4th Avenue in Brooklyn, which is the 3-mile mark. And I was like, I wound up running the marathon anyway, but I was like, wow, my dad is a dick. I had to like reconcile that in my life. Then he told my brother, don't go to college, just become a cop. And I was like, wow, my own dad tried to stop me from being successful in my life. Right? I suppose you might have had these kind of experiences in your life at times. There's a lot of people going to try to stop you from being successful. They're actually going to try to keep you in the hole that they're in. Now, I'm not in the hole you're in, but my own dad basically told me I would not finish the marathon. I did 11 in a row. As a fuck you to my dad specifically. Fat bastard alcoholic. I can say that now because we've reconciled. But you got to use that people don't. I think you have to use what you have, right? The previous person who asked the question was talking about like using what you have, the resources that have been given to you, the time that has been given to you. When people count you out, you just got to put that fire in your belly and be like, you know what? Fuck you. You don't think I'm going to make it? Fuck you. You're going to pick me up the 3rd mile? I'll see you at the 26th. And I'm going to shave 10 minutes off my marathon time every time. And I had that attitude. I had a fire in my belly. I felt like everybody was, the teachers who told me not to go to college, the people who, counted me out. So to the extent you can do it, take the shitty hand you've been dealt, put that fire in your belly, and acquire the skills. And don't let anybody who's counting you out or telling you they're going to pick you up at the 3rd mile of the marathon, don't ever believe it. Just go and do it and get the skills. They cannot stop you. The skills are all there. They cannot stop you from acquiring those skills. They will try, but they cannot. The skills are freely available on the internet now. The videos are there. You can be a developer, you can be a designer. They cannot stop you anymore. You do not have to go to Harvard. You do not have to get accepted by anybody. Nobody can stop you from getting the skills. If you get the skills, then you have a chance to make it. That's it. Get the skills.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Jason. My name's Harry.
Harry?
Yes.
It's a pleasure,
Thank you for
Harry.
coming in. I'm a graduate of the 7370 Track 3. And again, I know.
Track 3 is the best track, by the way. I don't want to bring it up. Track
Don't
2.
tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
I was just thinking that.
Don't tell anyone. So
Is there a little competition between the tracks? People,
there's no competition.
a little friendly competition? Maybe there should be. I thought it was pretty interesting that people were very specific about the tracks. I got to figure out what that's about, Chris.
Yeah. So I know driving up to San Quentin and even walking through the yard can be a little intimidating. But underneath that initial layer is another layer of men who are driven and passionate and are determined to succeed, to do whatever it takes.
I see that today.
And
You guys are not the yard.
And we're taking advantage of all these programs like the Last Mile and this coding class. So my question to you is this: I know a lot of us have learned from our past mistakes and failures, what it takes to propel us forward, so that when we re-enter society, we'll be better people. We'll be more productive citizens. I was wondering, although you've had all these wonderful successes, can you think of a failure that you had that you could say, you know what, that was a point where it drove me to do this differently, and how that has impacted your life?
Sure. God, I had so many failures. I've been getting, I'll tell you what the thing about failure is, just on a general basis. So anyway, I think your point is true. I have to say this is, the more time I spend with Chris in the program, the more I realize my preconceived notions, because the only real image I have of prison is what you see on television, Scared Straight and all this kind of stuff. And obviously, I guess there's some scary shit that goes down and it's rough and all that kind of stuff, but I guess there's also you're all human beings, right? Sure. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. We all have heartbeats and breathe, and so we're got a lot more in common than we have different. The thing about failure, I have to say, is when I was younger, it burned me, and I propelled it, as I talked about with our last guest, and I put it into my skills. And now I have a new philosophy of failure, which is I actually don't even think about it at all. Because I just say, you know what, Mahalo failed. I got so many bad beats. And I fought it for a while, where I was like, it shouldn't have failed. We were the 140th largest site in the United States after 24 months, and we're doing 10 million a year in revenue. And then Google was like, yeah, you know what, we're going to change the algorithm and send the traffic that was going to you to these other 5 sites. And I knew all the Google guys, and I was like, I went to see them. I was like, what the fuck's going on? You took all my traffic. We're partners. You got to fix this. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't know what's going on. And I was like, you wrote the algorithm. Fix it. What's going on? I have to lay people off. And I was bitter. I was angry. And then I realized, gosh, all that time and energy I'm putting into being bitter and angry and fighting over this is, it's kind of keeping me awake at night. I'm grinding my teeth. I'm kind of agitated. And there's all this other potential success I could be having, that because my energy is spent grinding my teeth over, this bad beat I got to just move on, because I can't change it. I tried. It's not going to change. They're not going to see it my way. And I'll go on to the next thing. And then, this one group, when I was talking before about how this legendary venture firm, which had invested in Mahalo, said, why don't you invest in a couple companies? And I had to open up my sort of heart and my mind to, well, maybe I'll try that. I tried it, and then I realized, holy shit, I'm better at this. I'm better at being the guy who invests in the company than the guy who makes them, right? But I spent 20 years building the companies. So I was like, oh shit, I wasted 20 years. I should have just been investing. But you know what? The 20 years I spent getting my ass kicked and being a warrior and being on the front line and laying people off and, having companies, crash and burn, that's what the entrepreneurs respected in me. So I had cred with the entrepreneurs because I'd been through the fire and I could talk to them in a way they could understand and I could empathize with what they were going through. So now I'm 45, and I just look at failure slightly differently. Failure is like what you have to deal with in order to be successful. But when you're young, you're just so full of piss and vinegar and you just are fighting everything. And like, I just realized growing up in Brooklyn and having my dad not believe in me and having to fight for everything I had, I was just a fighter. I was just designed to fight. So anything that happened in my life, the way I interpreted, the lens I looked at it was, Buck, let's go. It's a fight. It's gonna go down, right? It would be bad if I was in here because in my 20s or 30s, because that's the way I looked at the world. Was like, if you're gonna punch me, I'm like, okay, I think you're gonna punch me. I'm gonna punch you now before you get the first punch off. Right? I just had this very bizarre, aggressive, and when I failed, that bizarre aggressiveness just, it took over how I behaved, and I think it blocked success. And since I just look at the failures as like, yep, I tried something. I knocked on a couple of doors. I opened the doors. Nobody answered. Like, okay, maybe I'll just keep knocking on doors until one opens, right? And I don't know I can't sit here and say like I know what you're going through. I can't imagine it. It's got to suck, man. I mean, it's got to be the worst. It's the worst thing I can imagine, actually. In fact, or among the worst things I can imagine. But if that door does open for you, what choice do you have, right? It's got to be philosophical, right? Like if you're here. Either it has to consume you, or you have to take some philosophical look at your station.
It has to be a mind shift.
Yeah. How do you deal with it?
Thank you for asking. So again, I've learned, and it's been a process, that a failure is just an opportunity for success. Yeah. A failure is just an opportunity for success, and I've embraced it.
Yeah. I think, it's something very special. I think I can understand now, having been here, Chris, why this is so rewarding for you to do. Because we are like out there running fast and light, we're unencumbered. And you guys got this thing around your ankle, like this big weight, big backpack. And we're all running and we're like, oh God, running is so hard. I mean, you guys are running with bricks in a backpack. You guys got 100 times harder than we got it out there. So I got a lot of respect for what you guys are doing. Just a lot of respect, especially more so after today. So. Just, again, big round of applause for Chris for doing all this. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. Good stuff, man. All right. Any more? Got one more. AZ is going to follow up. We're going to just keep doing Q&A. These guys don't even have to be at lunch or anything, right? Fuck it. What's lunch? No eating today? Everybody's on... We're getting fat. You getting fat? All right. I feel you. Okay, AZ. Here we go.
Jason, thank you for coming.
I appreciate you guys having me. Let's keep going.
I hope this is an appropriate question. I was talking to a couple of the guys back there. Having been in the last mile, I've seen a lot of, people's passion in business ideas. That's part of the last mile, is that we have to develop business ideas we're passionate about. And having heard 3 of them today, that was the question we were wondering back there. Did you see anything that if we were out and we came to you that you would possibly invest in?
So when I invest, the product is typically in the market. So the person has enough skill to put the product in the market, and they have what we call in the business traction, some piece of data. So in your case, you have a sensor thing. So I'd have to see some sort of traction. Right now you have an idea. And to be fundable, you would have to have set up a couple of sensors on a piece of property and said, hey, Jason, look, boom, here's how it works. So you'd have to get past that. So that would, in our business, it's the responsibility of the entrepreneur to get to first base, basically, and then we get them from there, because all we get is people with ideas all along. We have to have some filter between people who are willing to put some level of effort into it, which is why I think the skills is so good. And so with GPA, the product, again, if Jason can simplify that product and get it into market, and just have 10 students on it with their parents, like if literally with Jason there is, if you could get 10 students using it with their parents and their teachers, that would be enough to qualify you for an angel investment. You would need to have a small one, like 10K or 25K. You'd start to sort of cross that chasm of okay, you're not just a talker, you actually have some people using it. So it doesn't have to be 10,000 people. But if you have 10, it just puts you in a totally different bucket. For yours, if you had the prototype built, or if you had somebody pay you to actually install it, and they said yeah, we believe in your sensor thing, and you just did it as like a customer. So you went to 20 people and said, hey, I could build this fire signaling system for your property. And one of them said yes, and they gave you $1,000 to build it. Even that would show that you were separated and you had the chutzpah to actually charge somebody for it. So that's what I'm always looking for, is those people who, and for Chris, where's Chris? Fitness, hey Chris. With your app, that's a big undertaking too, to get it finished. So I might advise simplifying just a wee bit. So sometimes you have this big vision, and what you do is you just sort of pull it back a little bit. It's great to have the big vision. Pull it back a little bit, simplify it to something that you can finish yourself without hiring people or spending money. Just finish it and make it tight. So GPA has 30 features. Let's get 2 done and make it tight. And then get a couple of people using it, and then, yeah, possibly, sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about Chris in this program, is it realistic that you would leave here and actually become an entrepreneur and be invested in? I think that's going to be hard. It is very realistic that you'll leave here and get a job, though, in the tech business. So I think that, Chris is sort of shooting for the moon, but getting the stars, or shooting for the stars and maybe capture the moon. Being an entrepreneur and getting that done, that's really hard. You can do it. But what might be the step in between is working for an entrepreneur.
We don't recommend that anybody come out the gate and try. We want everybody to be in working for at least a year or 2.
I think that's probably wise. But then again, we might be telling people we're picking them up at the 3rd mile of the marathon. Right. It might be. You never know. What I always did was I always had a job, and then I worked on my startup at night and the weekends. And the first 2 or 3 just got no traction, and then finally that little 16-page photocopy newsletter, I handed it to people, and people were like, this is really good. That was after I had 2 or 3 failed projects before that. So I think working on your startup while you're getting a salary and another job is one of the big secrets, because then you're learning and you don't have that pressure cooker. What happens when you raise capital is you're lighting a fuse, and you have 3 months, 6 months to figure it out or raise more capital, and it just puts us an inordinate amount of stress on a person. And as you're getting acclimated back into society, and I'm sure that's got to be a challenging process of getting back out there and assimilating into everything. The stability of a job is probably number 1. But the fact that you're thinking entrepreneurial, I think this program is crazy, Chris. You're teaching them to be entrepreneurs when everybody else is just well, can they just be functional in society? You kind of jumped the fence.
Not good enough.
Yeah, not good enough. I mean, you really have jumped the fence in terms of Chris expects you to do 10 times more than most people think you're going to fail at doing. Most people think you guys will get out and fuck it up or whatever. You get out and it's going to be hard. He actually thinks you're going to get out and then be an entrepreneur. It's awesome, dude. It's awesome. I think, it's good. If my dad had told me I'll pick you up at the marathon. I'll pick you up at the end of the marathon, and you should really consider doing a triathlon after that, or maybe you should do an ultra marathon. That's what I try to do with my kids. I'm trying to say yeah, you can do that, and you can do the next thing, right? So then Chris, that's that might be your skill. So yeah, I mean, getting a couple of customers will be the proof point that you need. And by the way, that's not unique to you. That's all entrepreneurs. There's so many people trying to get into the entrepreneurial game that the ones who stand out are the ones who actually get a couple customers. Once you get a couple customers, it's golden.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. All right. We got to wrap. All right. Listen.
Really appreciate it. The question we always get is, will you come back?
Will I come back? How could I not? I mean, it's just absolutely thrilling to see what you guys have done. I want to figure out I want to hear how the story ends for you guys. Jason, Chris, AZ. Good stuff. Good stuff. And by the way, strength in numbers. Some of you might have look at each other's ideas and then collaborate. Entrepreneurship is a team sport. Startups are a team sport. So if you do it it's great that you have your own passion, you're doing it, but if you can find common ground with some of your classmates and work together on something, the best startups typically have 2 or 3 founders working together. So when somebody has a rough day, the other person can build them back up, or the other 2 can. So, strength in numbers.
So we're going to invite Jason to the next Freedom Trail where we have Reggie and Jerome. We'll be up July 10th. So I'll send you an invitation to walk.
I may be playing the World Series of Poker.
All
See
right.
how far I go.
If you're not in Vegas, we'll be hiking Mount Tam with.
Oh, really? You're hiking Mount Tam?
Well, with 2 of our graduates.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
They stare at that Mount Tam for days and days and years,
Right.
and a chance for them to get a different look.
Wow.
And 2 of our graduates will be the first time they're up on Mount Tam. So
Who are those 2? Are they here in the room?
they're out.
They're already out.
Yeah.
They're already out.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you drive up here, and it is very interesting that this is the most beautiful location that you could absolutely imagine in terms of the view and everything. And then you think about this program is very beautiful, and then there's a lot of stuff in between that, is hard. It's gotta fuck with your mind a bit, looking out at that beautiful It does. It's almost torturous, to see that mountain up there and then to see the bay. But
well, your brothers in Ironwood are dealing with 120-degree weather right now, so
cakewalk.
you're lucky to be here. Yeah.
Cakewalk compared to that. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Listen, this has been real, and again, it's about that blank page and being the creator, and your skills. All that matters are your skills. That's it. That's how you're going to be judged. Your skills, and then by what you create. But you can't create without the skills. Get the skills.
Thanks.